and I'll post this afterwards so people can catch up. I'm also placing in the chat for anybody who likes having like a note-taking back channel. This is a public Miro board. It should be self-explanatory, but let me know if you have any questions about how to use it. You can pop in here, and it's just easy to add sticky notes with what questions you have, what ideas are coming out of this, and any next steps. There's also a place for folks to share their contact info. And for anybody who's watching this video later, I'll post this link along with the video so people can pop in here and keep any asynchronous conversations going. We just wanted to say thanks for joining today. My name is James. I'm one of the co-founders of Gimbalabs. The rest of the team is here. They'll introduce themselves in just a second. I was saying right before we pressed record that we've been meeting at this time every Tuesday for the last few weeks, just building out some interesting projects, seeing what we can accomplish. And Julie will tell you more about that in just a sec. Roberto, Kyle, you want to give a quick intro about yourselves before we hand it off to Julie?
Sure. Please go, Kyle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my name's Kyle. Joined Gimbalabs like a month ago, 2 months ago. I don't know, it's kind of starting to all blur together at this point. But yeah, just I've been working with Roberto for quite some time on various projects. Mainly Lift Wallet is probably the one that we've probably had the most development time with. Really digging in with metadata and not just and like kind of like exploring like other like decentralized concepts like such link data. That was probably one of our more recent little tinkering sessions. So yeah.
Yeah, my name is Roberto. I'm the last co-founder of Gimbalabs. And yeah, I've been working in the past with Emurgo. I somehow indirectly work in the New Balance project, breaking the backend with some rate limits. And yeah, in Gimbalabs, I've been working with James and Kyle, tinkering how to use all the available APIs and features from the blockchain, like GraphQL, Submit API, submitting metadata, trying to identify or authenticate users using tokens. That's all the nebula we've been trying to shape in the last couple or 3 months. And all that around the Lift wallet that Kyle started, which is like our little playground to make it easier to post metadata or while learning all the internals of the APIs and so on.
Great, thank you. So to balance, like to make the team complete and balanced, maybe, so not only from the gender point of view, but also from the capacity point of view, I am Julie. I am fulfilling kind of the project management, commercial, strategy, marketing, and everything that's not technical actually in the team of Gimbalabs. And it's a very exciting time until now. And I think we have a lot more to build. And yeah, I would say let's take the hour we have and really leverage it, because we are so eager to know real world cases, application, and we have a lot of questions to ask you as well. So to have a quick understanding, what's the Gimbalabs Playground? It is actually a playground where we're focusing on giving the developer a meaningful experience in terms of actually really bridging the gap between the problems or ideas from the real world into the Cardano blockchain ecosystem applications. So we really have like 3 main foundations where we really develop this workshop. The first one is the project-based learned approach. So we really want to make sure that people not just listen and consuming, but rather than doing, asking questions, experiencing, right? And there comes the second layer, is the strong foundation of experimental approach we learn along the journey. We come up with different questions and really facilitate the experience around that exploring mechanism we implemented. And the third one is really to be very collaborative. And this is something like we build together. And that is furthermore imposing the interchange on what is the best way to do things. So really challenge the different point of views, challenge the things from the technical side. And out of that, we really draw results for the developers. And that is the meaningful experience, actually. That is the fostering network. And it is as well the formation of teams that hopefully lead to spin-off projects that could be proper ventures, emerging businesses, as well as good and sophisticated catalyst proposals. And with that, I think I summed it up hopefully quite quick. I would like to hand over to Carlos, to Gonzalo and Alan, which now the stage is yours. We would love to hear some notes from you. Where you come from, what are you doing, and what is your work? Like 20 minutes, and then we have plenty of questions to ask you. Thank you very much to be here with us.
Thank you very much, everyone. So let's actually start a little bit by presenting the team that was brought here. So you will find in this call, and I will allow every single one of them to present themselves, but let me give you, who's coming from our side. So you will see here Guillermo, Gonzalo, and Alan. Alan is the solutions architect in the professional services team. Gonzalo and Guillermo, I mean, the reason, there are two specific, very interesting things that I wanted you to know by bringing this team into the picture. So in the case of New Balance, for instance, it was not an implementation that we did. Not only the New Balance, Beef Chain was also the case, and it is generally our case, that the implementations, we do not do it alone. And Gonzalo and Guillermo not only are great team members and have been part of our team for a long time, they are also from a very good partner of us that is called ATIX. And we have done a lot of projects with that company, an Argentinian company. So again, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you such a diverse team is for you to not only understand what we have done, but also understand that we do this along with partners, along with other companies. And it is part of the things or the mission that we have in professional services, not only to make sure that the problem is solved the right way, but also to work with other competent companies across the globe to actually make things happen, right? It will be impossible for IOHK to do everything. At the end of the day, we're just only one company. So it's really exciting for me to start seeing that we are engaging into other types of partnerships, with Gimbalabs, right? Here we are with the partnership is a little bit different, but it still is something very valuable for us. Hopefully we can nurture it and grow it in the next, few months and years, right? All right, so let's go to the team. Let's start with Alan, then Guillermo, and finally Gonzalo. Alan.
Thanks, Carlos. Hello, everybody. So yes, as Carlos said, Alan McSherry is my name, and I'm a solutions architect in PSG. And I was very struck by something Julie said, because that's actually quite similar to what we do, in that we sort of take some of the products and things that come out of engineering, and we try to look at them differently and plug them in differently and fill in gaps and add stuff to them and put them into the hands of other people and developers who want to to solve problems and to try and bridge that gap a little bit. And I was delighted to hear that you have questions. So I look forward to hopefully answering those. And having said that, now I've given myself the kiss of death. I'm sure I won't be able to answer a single one. Now let's find out.
Thanks, Alan. So I'm Guillermo. I work as a project manager. I've worked with Carlos and his team for the last 2 years. We started working together for the New Balance project. And since then, we've worked on many projects that involve connecting real-world apps to the Cardano blockchain. So using metadata with some and some others with different solutions.
Yep. So yeah, my name is Gonzalo. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes,
yeah.
we can.
Okay. So I'm working as a technical lead from ATIX. We are working together with IOHK to build these kind of solutions that build on top of Cardano and building real use cases, hopefully, so that people can use Cardano to other than just trading value. Like Guille, I have been working on this project for at least 2 years, I think. And yep, that's it.
Good. Thank you, everyone. So do you mind, Guille, if we go to the presentation? Let's do these first 20 minutes of the things that we have prepared for you guys, and then the rest of the meeting will be just for Q&A. Let us know what do you want to know, and we are here to help.
Outstanding. Yeah, who's sharing the presentation?
I'm trying to share,
Okay.
but I'm getting an error.
Got you. Okay, you are now a co-host.
Okay. Yep, there it is. So let me share. So what we are presenting today is Atala Scan. Atala Scan is an anti-counterfeit solution built on top of Cardano. We went through different architectures and type of solutions that I will present. So first of all, let's introduce what Atala Scan is for. So Atala Scan, like I said, is used for authenticating products. So for example, New Balance, which is our main use case, doesn't get a massive counterfeit problem, in the sense that this solution allows the user, the consumer of the product, to verify in a friendly way if that product is original or it is a counterfeit. So basically, there are obvious benefits, but I will just mention them. So the first one being that it increases customer trust, because when you buy a certain product, you don't actually know if that's a counterfeit or not. Maybe you have more or less rate of certainty, or yeah, but you cannot be 100% certain. So with this product, we try to increase that certainty a little bit, and it also enhances brand protection, because one really bad thing about counterfeit is not only that the company doesn't get its pay in that product, but that it hurts the image of the company itself, because counterfeit products are not usually of good quality. So it doesn't only affect it at the moment of the purchase, but kind of the impact is prolonged in time. So with Atala Scan, we want to avoid that kind of counterfeit. So first of all, I'm gonna go with a demo, so you can see the product itself, and later we can discuss how it was built on top of Cardano, and what were the challenges. So here we have the phone with the Atala Scan application installed, and we have a counterfeit product and an original one. First, we are going to scan a counterfeit. Obviously, here the application shows that is not a recognized product, so it shows an error. But when the product is an original product, it doesn't matter which kind of brand, it shows the brand and the product that you're scanning. Let me pause it a little bit. So it detects not only if the product is authentic, but it also detects the brand and the product that you are scanning. So for example, with this app, you could be scanning like here a medication product or a shoe or whatever, and the application itself detects what kind of product it is, and obviously if it is original. So here we can scan the ID of the product. We call this process the claiming of the ownership. So you can not only check that the product is original, but you can claim that it is yours. This isn't like really useful maybe for medication, but for collectibles like kind of shoes with a limited amount of products. And here we are doing that claim of transaction. Here we have to wait a little bit because that is a security feature of the hardware component we are using, which we will discuss. And here is seen. And here we can see that the original product was claimed and it is in process. A little bit later, we can scan again and see that the product is original and that the ownership was claimed. I don't know if you could see, but here it said it was in process, and a little bit later it is claimed. So that is mainly Atala Scan, and here now I will explain, or try to explain at least, how it was built and what were the main challenges. So basically, we have two main functional challenges. One is keeping the data secure and auditable, which, spoiler alert, here comes the blockchain. But there is another problem with doing this kind of counterfeit checking or original product checking, which is breaching reality with data. I mean, the blockchain itself has many advantages, and it is secure, it is auditable, and so on. But the thing is that it is not a tangible thing, if you will. So you have to somehow bridge that gap between the reality, the physical object, with the data. So we transform those challenges to two main technical challenges. Like I said, we have the blockchain interaction with the data integrity challenge, and to bridge the gap between reality and the blockchain, we integrated with two NFC chips, which are like unforgeable. So with this type of hardware, we are able to like connect somehow the product, for example, the shoe in the case of New Balance, with an identity in the blockchain. So how did we do that identity mapping between the product and the blockchain? First of all, I'm going well with time, right? I mean, you can, okay, cool. So the first approach we took was like using payments as a way of identifying an address as a valid for example, shoe or medication or whatever. So when you, as let's say, New Balance wanted to authenticate a shoe with as an original product, you basically send a payment to the shoe itself, telling the blockchain, hey, I'm myself, New Balance producer, authenticate this original product, and that's it. Basically, you will have a unique product ID encoded in a Cardano address, which is basically that mapping, and the manufacturer, New Balance, will send the data to that particular Cardano address. Obviously, you could check from outside, knowing which is the address of the shoe and which is the address of the producer, if that transaction occurred or not. That's what we did basically on our backend, and that's what was the solution on this first approach.
Let me, Gonzalo, chime in a little bit here, because there's a nice nice story around it. Like if you check the dates of the things that we have been doing and the dates of the Chile launch, you will notice that we launched New Balance and we announced Beef Chain way before Chile was out. And Metadata came out with Chile, right? With the hard fork of Chile. So we had to be, at the very beginning, very creative in the way that we represented data with accounts. And one of the things that, at the end of the day, what we ended up doing is, if you're familiar with hierarchical HD wallets, deterministic wallets, then those wallets have indexes, and the indexes can be interpreted. If provided that the shoe has an ID, right, then you have indexes. And if you can control the source of a certain bag of data, meaning that, let's say, this bag of data belongs to New Balance, if ADA goes out of that wallet, New Balance vetted that transaction because they are the ones holding the private key. So we utilize these two components, the fact that we have indexes and the fact that we controlled the source of the data to actually mimic, in a way, authentic data and the existence or not of a unique identifier of a real shoe on the blockchain. Now, Gonzalo will explain you a little bit about how we went from that to the current solution that utilizes metadata and utilizes actually the metadata services that Alan McSherry created. But I'll let Gonzalo go ahead.
Yeah, as Carlos said, this was previous to the Shelly launch. This was the stage where we used, like Roberto said, where we use Shoroi backend to check that transactions. And I'm sorry, what?
I think it was just feedback, was it? Or was someone asking a question? No, I don't think.
Okay, I will go ahead. So like Carlos said, once Shelly launched with the metadata, we changed the solution to a more elegant one, if you will, where we were using metadata as it should be, because what we were trying to do is basically send authenticated data to somewhere that cannot be tampered with or whatever. So in this approach, we basically did the same. We had an ID stamped in Cardano using a metadata service. Basically, we sent that metadata with the manufacturer private key. So that particular metadata is not only signed by us, but from the manufacturer itself, by the manufacturer itself. So basically, with that, we can check the same thing that we did before, but with a little bit more of elegancy, if you will. So here is I'm sorry.
Yeah, so let me just chime in a little bit to also a point that I want to make, which is interesting. I want to us to think that, I mean, the problem of bridging the gap is a big one, really a big one, and you will find it in all the solutions that you will have in front of you. Let me give you an example that has nothing to do with all this, but so you get a notion. NFTs have been booming in the past few weeks, right? And you know that the multi-asset standard from Cardano supports them, but also, you know, Ethereum has these smart contracts and has a specific ERC20s for that, from non-fungible and semi-fungible, and so on and so forth, right? But here is the thing: one of the underlying assumptions in all these user journeys is that if you hold the private keys that own the NFT, then the NFT is yours. And then since there's only one NFT in the blockchain, if it says that you're the owner of whatever painting, whatever, then if you demonstrate access to that private key, then people can say, yeah, then you have the shoes, you have the painting, you are the owner of this, you are the owner of that. But what prevents me, being that, you know, owner on the blockchain, to share with someone else my seed phrase, that person backups, you know, restores that wallet, and starting from that point, that other person will be able to demonstrate to anyone in the world that he is also the legitimate owner. What does that mean then, right? What does that mean? What does that mean that you allow that to happen, right? What prevents you? There's nothing preventing you to show your seed phrase to someone else. You know, you can write it down in paper and send it in a picture. What does that mean then, right? And it all boils down to this bridge that needs to be created between the real world and what is happening there and what is going on the blockchain. Because within the blockchain universe, everything will make sense, you know, and everything will be transparent, everything will be worked on, everything will just work, right? But there are events in the real world that can happen that will break some assumptions when you actually design the solution. And that's what you need to be always looking at, right? Where are the risks? What assumptions are you making, right? What bridge did you create, and what are the limitations of that bridge? If you go way too secure, there's always a trade-off of user experience, right? If you host the private key on a ledger inside the most secure bank in the world, and you have to pass through 50 people and make sure that never is copied, you know, no one will utilize that application. If you make it really easy for people to restore, then you open up the door for this, right? So where do you stand? And it is a contextual problem that you need to solve depending on the business problem that you have in front of you. It is very different to utilize blockchain for financial transactions than to product authentication, than for traceability. All those things have different assumptions, different risks profiles, right? Different assumptions, and so on and so forth. And you know, it is in bridging that gap that you need to ask these fundamental questions. Are not technical questions; they are business plus technical kind of questions, right? Okay, please go ahead, Gonzalo.
Okay, so here we have like a high-level architecture and diagram where we show which is basically all of the components that form the solution. First of all, we have the producer down here, which is the one that signs that a particular product or a particular ID belongs to a product that is original. And we can see that it communicates with some services that one goes to a storage service and the other one goes to Cardano. I will explain that in a few slides, but I want to first focus here on the consumer side. So basically, like Carlos said, you have to bridge reality with the data, and yeah, that will cause a lot of problems, or there are a lot of problems, yeah, that you cannot think of all of them at the same time. I mean, some of them will come up later, but anyway, we took an approach where I think the solution, the security is pretty good, in the sense that the consumer will have to read an NFC that is unforgeable. Which, I mean, what is unforgeable and what is not is difficult to say, because everything is forgeable if you put enough money on it, and obviously that is a limitation, like Carlos said, that it is not only a technical problem, but also a problem from the business standpoint. So let me tell you a little bit of the chips that we use. We use Tantiem as well as NXP chips. NXP, I mean, the Tantiem ones have an asymmetric engine, and I mean an asymmetric cryptography engine, which allows you to sign blobs of text without actually the private key leaving the chip. And that's what we saw in the demo. Here at the end of the demo, we saw that the application was signing. This part here it wasn't really the application which was signing, it was the chip itself. So here is that waiting and time that we have to wait, and that was because the chip itself has a security feature that doesn't allow you to sign unless you wait those 15 seconds. That basically avoids someone, for example, reading your NXP chip while your NFC chip while you are looking away. So giving that time frame where you have to wait avoids that kind of problem. But obviously, with the reality, you have a lot of possible threats, and that is one. But not all of them can be covered. For example, like Carlos said, someone could steal the Tantiem card, but yeah, and that kind of is a lot more difficult to cover.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
This one, Gonzalo, it's also very important for you to understand what specific problem you're solving. No one can solve all the problems. Like in the counterfeit space, solving counterfeiting is impossible, right? Because the same technology that you have access to, there are many different things that make it impossible, but one of those things is that there is a lot of outsourcing in the supply chain, right? So if a factory that is, let's say in China, is doing the, fabricating the shoes, what prevents that this factory to, instead of just producing 100, producing 150? And if they do, and they own the process, what will be the physical difference between a counterfeit and an and a real shoe? If physically they are the same, because they were produced by the same factory. So all these are global problems and intricate problems. But here, when you try to do something like this, you need to be clear exactly what problem you're solving. Because what we did for anti-counterfeit in particular is that we do not intend to make it impossible. We just intend to make it economically inviable for the people that are massively doing this. And that is achievable. Making impossible is unachievable. So it is not a perfect solution. There are no perfect solutions, but it is just a good enough solution for businesses to care about it, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly the point that I was trying to reach. Like, you cannot make a perfect solution, but you can make a solution that it makes counterfeit so costly that, or so expensive, that it isn't feasible or reasonable to do so. So just for completeness, the other chip that we integrated with was the NXP chip, which didn't have an asymmetric encryption, cryptography engine, but it had some other features that we had to integrate. For example, it had a signature, and it also had a symmetric cryptography engine. So we have to leverage those features to make it as secure as the tangent one. And well, just to complete the diagram, basically the consumer read the NFC chip, communicated with probably another service that I don't have here, because it was just to check that the chip was a chip like from NXP, but it basically communicated. After that, it communicated with a public API, which had a DB, which only acted as a cache or as a cache, I think it's pronounced, and to check that some information was verified in the blockchain, and not check it every time that a user scanned a new chip or a product. So here we have two services that one acts as a storage. It's called store and hash. I will explain in a little bit for what we use that, and a metadata service, which I think it's a little bit more obvious. So basically, in the store and hash service, which was built by Alan, Alan, feel free to champion or whatever if you think that something can be added. So basically, the store and hash service lets you store any file in a reliable store. We use S3, but I think it's on the plan to use IPFS or any kind of storage service, let's say. Get a hash out of it. Basically, a hash for the less savvy is an ID based on the content of the file. So if you change any letter, even if you capitalize a letter, you get a different hash. So a different ID will be given to you, and after that you could retrieve that file by a hash. So basically, we have that in this figure. I'm sorry, anyone? Okay. So yeah, that was the store and hash service, which obviously we did. What we did here is sending all of the IDs of the shoes or products that we wanna verify. We put them in a file and send it to this store and hash service. In this way, we guarantee that the file is there. If there is a person or a producer that is a little bit more paranoid that this will fall, the service will be off sometime, they could make a copy. But the important thing here is that if you get the hash, you are guaranteed that the file is not malleable, because once you get the file out of the service, you could check if the hash of the file that you got is the one that you sent to the service. Is that clear? Maybe I didn't.
It is. Thanks.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
So the final part is basically sending that hash to the Cardano network. We did that with the metadata service which was also made by Alan, which allowed us to not only, like, with the file, we have the opportunity or the ability to say, here is a file that it won't be changed. But the thing with the metadata service is that we also have the ability to say, hey, this is a valid file. Like New Balance, for example, said that this is a valid file and everything in it is valid. So through the combination of these two services, we are able to basically store anything in the blockchain through a cost-wise, if you will, way. Yeah, that's it from the architecture side. Obviously, like I said, the hash goes into a block in the Cardano network, and you can check that later using, in our case, the public API through the metadata service. So here we discussed how Atala Scan worked, but the success story here is the New Balance Real Chain, which is basically a custom built app from the Atala Scan solution, which basically does everything that I explained, but it has some branding of New Balance, like automatically popping out of the screen once you turn on the app. We implemented this for a particular kind of shoe, which is, I think it was for Kawhi Leonard. Correct me, Carlos, if I'm wrong. But yeah, it was for, yeah, for that kind of product. And well, here you have the figures of downloads that we have in both stores. And I think that's it. Yep.
Thank you very much.
I might jump in here and just thanks, Gonza, and add just an appendix, really, just to point out a couple of links, if nobody's any objections. Yeah. Okay. Can I share? I wonder. Oh, there we go. Okay. So as Gonza sort of referred to, there's a couple of services that we have. So I just wanted to point out the protobuf for these services is available in a GitHub repository, and there's a little bit of text around how to use it. And so this is for the metadata service. So you can take this and run it through your client generator and generate a client for your language of choice. I mean, you know, Java, JavaScript. There's a Rust is supported. There's quite a few. It's a sort of well-supported protocol, if you like. And the other one, which Gonzalo also mentioned, was the store and hash service. There's a protobuf here for that. And so if you do that, you can then utilize either of those. We have those services published for the testnet, so you can actually, you know, play with them and use them today. And I will just show you where the
real quick, can I ask
the details for that are. Sorry, I beg your pardon.
When you say proto, you're referring to gRPC?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, nice. Okay, cool.
Sorry, that's the same one. Where was our so the DevOps GitHub Explorers just gives you some of the actual details as to what's running where. So you can, you know, cut and paste you can cut and paste the DNS names once you get your client generated. So go get the gRPC protobuf source, and then you can attach it and use it with the testnet. And then one other thing I wanted to show was just this PSG Cardano wallet API. So this is a this is specifically for Scala or Java developers, I guess, and it just wraps the existing Cardano wallet backend. So I just pointed out because I don't know about this crowd, but Java is quite popular in other places. So this is just a simple client around the Java-based client around that. So just to point that out. And then was there anything else I wanted to mention? Oh, yes. There's a Cardano metadata workshop. So if you do a search for this in the IOHK playlist, you'll see that there's a presentation that's also about metadata. And there's a few examples of how to post metadata to the testnet. And then there's this one which we haven't come across, which is a third service that we've sort of worked on, which kind of combines the two services that we talked about that Gonzo mentioned. And so what this allows you to do is to take your PGP key and use it as the basis, use it as a trust anchor. So you take your PGP key and you encrypt files by sending them as an encrypted message to a special email address. And what the service does is downloads those, checks those against a whitelist, checks that they're all signed correctly, then takes the attached files, puts them into the permanent storage, takes the hash and several other parameters, which you can kind of program inside in the body of the email, and post that to the post that metadata to the blockchain, and then you get a nice email back telling you that everything went okay. So that's also there. And then the definitely last point is that one of the things we're doing is putting those, so all those services that I spoke about there or the two services that I spoke about there are available for the testnet. And what we're currently doing and are just sort of rolling out is this ability to pay for the services on the mainnet. So you'll be provided with an API key, a secret, which will be linked to your account. You put that into the gRPC client that you generate, and assuming that you have put a few bucks into the account, you'll get to utilize those services on the mainnet.
Yeah. So I'll also provide a little bit more context on all this. Actually, at the very beginning, we were also utilizing Roberto. You mentioned it, Yoroi, when we were representing data with implicitly with the HT wallets and on. Now when all these things that we have shown you is not only our thought process towards solving these problems, but it is also some things that we have found useful for us. Like for instance, these protobufs, gRPC services, the wrapper in the Cardano wallet for Java and Scala. You know, spoiler alert, we're Scala fans within our team, so that's why that exists. It's also things that we have seen our clients ask repeatedly, or I mean, let's say not ask repeatedly, because a client does not knock on our door and say, hey, I need a metadata service. No, they say, I need to protect my products, and then you know that you have to have that capability. So over time, we have built this set of wrappers to help our client engagements. And we have publicized pieces pieces of it, like Alan was mentioning, also made available for the testnet. Of course, we cannot make it open available for the mainnet, because every transaction has an ADA cost, and we cannot allow the world to just start submitting transactions on our own. And also, if we have a certain cost structure around it to make sure that it is up and running 24/7 and so on and so forth. So we have the testnet piece openly functioning, and we are monitoring and making available the mainnet piece. But there is a wallet that needs to be funded, right, for the user and from the user and so on and so forth. So that's where we are coming from. It's not only about serving the client, we have found over time that there are specific things that serve very well the enterprise customer. And whenever it makes sense, we find out a way to operationalize that or generalize that and make it available on the testnet for other people that might benefit, or even people that will speed up their business, will speed up their development if they had access to this added functionality. And let me tell you, I mean, the Cardano has their own APIs, but sometimes it is small things. It is tiny little things. Like, for instance, this email thing, it came out of a client engagement. I mean, the reason why we put email there is because the people had nothing. I mean, what they knew was email. The people handling the documents, what they knew was an email. And of course, they knew how to handle email, but adding a new interface to their day-to-day would have been cumbersome for them and an extra step. So it is. Does it have to do anything with blockchain? No, it has to do more about adoption and making it easy for the user to use it. So if we allow you to sign a document with GPG or so, and then you send it to somewhere and it magically gets tested against the blockchain with metadata, and you get a reply to it, that only serves for everyone. So that's our main focus. We make it. We will bridge the gap, and if the gap means that it is an email, it is an email, and we will do it. If the gap means it is a hardware component, it is a hardware component, and we will do it. And that's what we do.
That's a really powerful point. I really like that, Carlos. Hey, I know you guys don't have long to stick around, but I know that a lot of us have questions. So who's got something? Fine, I'll start. One of the questions that keeps coming up in our conversations the last few weeks is about schema for metadata, right? Who gets to make what decision about the structure of this data? How do you guys handle those conversations inside of your team?
So you're right, and it's an interesting one because we run into exactly that issue when we post our metadata, and really what we do is we just publish how it is encoded. So it's on a case-by-case basis. We don't try to create a standard because we haven't needed to. And if a standard does evolve, then we will try to adhere to that. But at the moment, we don't have a standard. I've seen the sort of an embryonic standard. I personally think that sort of standards evolve at a very natural pace, and if you try to go too fast, you'll fail. And if you lag behind, you're wasting time. So there's a sort of an ideal pace for them to evolve at. And at the moment, I think we're just that tiny bit early.
And you're right. There's a bunch of questions on the Miro board. To anybody here, what stands out? What are you most curious to hear about?
I don't know who wrote it, but I would like to hear your thoughts about the carry identity solution, which is like the new way of having evolving identity where no centralized authority controls the revocation and rotating of identity. I don't know if you explored that key event receive infrastructure for identity. Just curious. I think that was A's question because.
Yeah, I will. I mean, I don't know if any of the other guys have any more to add, but I will be looking at it. And so, no, I have not looked at it yet. So apologies, I have no more detail.
What's the identity solution you mentioned?
Carry.
Key ERI. So it's basically a cryptographic solution to revocate your previous keys by yourself, having third parties agreeing on those. I couldn't even explain it well, but it's an awesome piece of cryptographic approach.
It even seems to
Interesting.
follow. I'm not going to call it BIP32, but it's kind of in line, by deriving child keys and whatnot. So.
Yeah. So the one thing that we have explored significantly is the more general the self-sovereign identity stuff, right? Where that is being discussed in the W3C, the Decentralized Identity Foundation, and so on and so forth. I mean, Kerry seems to be attached to it, but I haven't deep dived into that. No, I could tell you that the entire Atala Prism and SSI discussion is really interesting. If you think about what it is proposing. And what it is proposing is a layer on top of TCP/IP that has identity as a first-class citizen. You know how in internet there's no explicit, identity is not ingrained, and that's why every single person that puts something on the internet needs to add an identity layer to it, because there's no identity in the transport protocol. It is not an easy problem to solve, but blockchain complements a very interesting solution that can be found in the self-sovereign identity stack. So imagine that instead of establishing connections with IPs, you establish connections with identities. And if you are able to do that, authentication is implicit in just the mechanism of creating the connection, which allows interesting applications. But no, I haven't personally, deep dived or heard about Carry.
It's a good thing to know that you have it on the radar for identity solutions, because I guess Prism at his current state, it's more decentralized ID, having this, let's say, government institutions doing the control of the identity expedition and revocation and all that stuff. I want to connect that to, I think I already know. Oh, it's okay now. I think I already grasped the solution, but and I suppose it's in your metadata server, but I need to ask how you authenticate. Let's say, do you have a use case where you need to listen for a specific metadata label, authenticate new entries? Like, do you have some identity solution implemented with tokens or with known addresses, some type of registry? That's really the most challenging thing we came across. We've been thinking on using IPFS and RBTP to have like this to maintain these registries and register them, the objects that back these registries and databases on Cardano chain. But yeah, that will be very, very, very helpful if you can share some insights around that. Maybe I asked too many questions at the same time, sorry. But yeah, basically how you, if you do listen for new metadata entries, how you authenticate them.
So
yeah,
there's, okay, go ahead, Gonzo.
Oh, sorry. So for the particular use case in Atala Scan, we have like a predefined set of addresses that we know that are like important to us. So we just track them in our database. Like that could be changed probably. I mean, the database is centralized, but the important thing here is that the user could verify it against a third party. For example, the producer itself could post somewhere its address and could check with that particular thing. Yeah, that's it. Go ahead, Anna.
I just to add, I don't know if you've come across the DB Sync facility. You have. Okay, so that's just to throw that out there, that for you can attach that to a node, and then you can use that to listen for specific metadata or what, you know, or anything really. It's very flexible.
Yeah, that's why we've been thinking on maybe parties that want to spam our application with valid but not valid metadata, and then started thinking on using tokens for authenticating metadata posted to these metadata labels. That stuff. I think we came with a good solution to check who is held. I mean, to perform the authentication by checking if we have, for example, in the entrance for an event, we check if the person that we have in front of us has is a token holder, which will be the token will be the physical ticket for the event. We thought to generate like an ID with valid for a time frame, send it to the attendee through IPFS or BTP or whatever, secure channel where this exchange happens, and then the attendee should sign a transaction with that generated ID, which is valid just for, let's say, a couple of minutes, send it to Cardano, and then the door guardian will check if the address that signed the transaction with the metadata, with the ID that was generated, had the holding of the token, which is the physical ticket. I don't know if I explained it well, but yeah, basically we try to use NFTs as authentication method for this. And trying to avoid any centralized service as much as possible. But yeah, in the end, we need a balance between security and decentralization and providing a working solution.
I like what Carlos said about it. It really depends on the client too. And this really applies. I can imagine how for a given job, some pocket of centralization is going to be necessary. Right? Otherwise, they're going to say, I'm not doing that, right? So this is a good tool to have when necessary on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, because at the very end, it is centralized on the producer. Like Carlos said, if the producer itself just puts like bad quality products out there and it just signs them as original, it will be problematic for the consumer. But yeah, you will have the same problems because the producer itself is the centralization part on this kind of solution that we deal with.
Okay, just to make sure and respect the time you've taken to expose the knowledge, the insights, we're very grateful of. We are over the hour. I don't know how your agendas look like, so if you want to close here, that's totally fine to us. If you say, okay, one or two of you have like 5 or 10 minutes more, I don't know if anybody has another question, that would be great too. But I actually really, we would actually leave it up to you respecting the time and probably the line of projects that are waiting for you.
Yeah, so I mean, it's funny because the next meeting is precisely with Guillermo, Gonzalo, and Alan, and myself. So
well anticipated, I would say.
So let's just stay maybe a couple more, maybe 5 to 10 minutes more, because we do need to discuss other things.
Good.
So if there are more questions, let's try to tackle one or two more, and you can reach us, right? If you have questions about what we have built, the services, the Gimbalabs guys, that you can contact me directly, or you also have the enterprise.services@iohk.io. Even if you are interested in, from many different perspectives, but even especially if you're interested in the services that you saw today, and you think they will make your life easier, right? And hence you want to deploy them on mainnet, would like to test the testnet, then speak to us, right? Because we have built this for ourselves, and now it is useful for ourselves. You saw it in Atala Scan. We're utilizing them, but why not make them available for other people? If they save us time, it means that they could save someone else's time as well.
Absolutely. So I just want to first say thank you for taking the time to kind of go over, your thoughts and approaches and kind of your reasonings and stuff. One, I'd like to say it's like very validating. We've kind of, at least I know me and Roberto, I can't tell you how many times we've talked about PGP and metadata and JSON LD and all these things. And, venturing into IPFS has definitely been, very interesting and allow us to kind of connect all of our ideas together. So kind of seeing that IPFS is in your model and all that stuff is really cool. I have one question. It's actually for Alan. You showed a Cardano wallet API wrapper, and I'm really curious, is that the Cardano wallet binary that you're wrapping?
No, so that's just, the Cardano wallet API is a REST API that they expose, and this simply wraps that in a Java or Scala environment. So when you just declare Cardano API with the base URL, and then from there on out, you're dealing in Java or Scala to interact with the wallet.
Oh, okay, that's really cool. Yeah, because I do a lot of .NET development, primarily like in my own professional career, and I try to really do what I can whenever I dabble in Cardano stuff. I typically figure out how I can leverage .NET to do it. So I was just curious. So like when you were talking about the proto stuff, I was like, all right, I can. That's some .NET stuff I can create clients and stuff for. So.
Yeah, so that is separate in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and yeah, there's I haven't actually gone and done it, but I'm 99.9% sure there's a .NET generator for the proto.
Yeah. I mean, if you can, that's why I was asked, like specifically gRPC, because gRPC is really interesting that it's more or less just here's a contract, right? Fulfill the contract, and I can communicate with you. And yeah, and the fact that it's just communicates over binary versus string is a huge advantage. So I think it's really smart.
Cool. I've got a. Were you going to say something, Roberto?
Oh no, please go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, guys, thanks for doing this. The Gimbal folks, the IO folks as well. My sort of question slash I suppose suggestion here would be around information asymmetries, right? So I feel like in the spirit of decentralization, it would be, I feel, in keeping with that, as well as just, from an efficiency standpoint, like this conversation, I think is going to be super helpful for people to actually watch, and get an insight into your thinking behind metadata and, and sort of applying it in the context of ID, etc. However, like in thinking about your approach in terms of like I suppose a threat model, for lack of a better word, as you said, not every situation is the same, but also you're not trying to make it impossible. You're just trying to make you're trying to disincentivize it, right? By say making it economically the cost benefit not to make sense. So I suppose what I would like to see would be, say for example, I don't know, a diagram of your thinking in terms of like a threat model, as well as just in general, like my big gripe with IO has been just the kind the information asymmetries. So like as we've been trying to work on these ideas, as Roberto and Carl have have pointed out, we're surprised that like, oh hey, you guys are thinking about the same stuff. It would have been awesome if we just go like to the GitHub or whatever and be able to actually see and be on the same page and sort of be working I feel at a much faster rate. So yeah, that's just my sort of quick suggestion. I'm curious whether you guys have been considering zero knowledge proofs in terms of the implementation, and what you're thinking about in terms of storage and processing moving forward. That's one thing that we've been really curious about, wary not to use up or too much metadata because of the querying and the processing, etc., and the storage. But you might have some inside knowledge in terms of some sharding or something coming up. So yeah, I'm going to jump off my soapbox now, but yeah, hopefully that was somewhat informative for anyone listening.
So what's your name? Sorry, I just see an A.
Yeah, I go by A.
It's like, have you seen Death Note? You remind me of L. No. All right. So plenty of questions. We will have to. It's okay. So let's go. The first one I thought was about the thought process in the implementation of the anti-counterfeit, right? And you ask for a diagram of the threats, or at least the reasoning behind it. And I mean, what I can share with you really easy right now is that in understanding the risks, if you can limit the amount of legitimate product at any point in time, that poses a significant constraint to the economic incentive of multiplying it or making it in mass. Like if you can ensure, in a way, right? This is you have to distill it really. I mean, and accommodate it or think about it and think about the risks and the specific way in which it is implemented. But if at any point in time there are only 2,000 valid shoes, and the bridge with reality is made in a meaningful way, meaning that you cannot replicate, like the example that I was given, that let's say that it is a wallet that allows you to demonstrate that you're the legitimate owner of an NFT, and but it is hard to actually replicate that private key, meaning that you cannot just have your friend also be able to demonstrate that because it gives you some social status or because it gives you access to something, right? If you can ensure that at any point in time only one user or there are only 2,000 users in the world that can demonstrate that, then that's a good start. That's a good start, because the economic incentive of doing counterfeit products, it is either because you have to pay for the for the risk, right? If you're a counterfeit producer, you have to somehow have a great margin because you have a big risk, and often you will find your entire container being intercepted by authorities, and then you lose. You cannot claim that, right? You cannot do anything about it. They just destroy the product. So it has big risks, so you need big margins. You have to be able to do it with or even have a tremendously huge margin, which means that the product is really scarce. Maybe it is a couple in the world, right? And you have to have a great convincing power or scanning power for the buyer. The more scarce the item is, the bigger the price, the more guarantees the buyer wants to have. All those things go attached. So a sweet spot for a counterfeit person is that where the buyers don't ask too much, right? But still you can get a good margin. And for you to be able to do that, you have to create more than one item that is also a counterfeit, and find out that audience that won't ask too many questions, won't violate too many things, and it still will pay a good price for it. It is also an intricate market because there are people that pay for knockoffs. Well, there won't be knockoffs. Pay for counterfeit shoes intentionally because they want the social status, but they don't want to pay for the full price. So it is. I mean, there is actually not a legitimate business, but people doing copies on purpose, and people asking for copies on the purpose. That is part of the reason why it's impossible to make it impossible, because both the buyer and the seller are incentivized in a different way to engage in this transaction. But if you can ensure that there's only, let's say, 2,000 shoes since the beginning at any single point in time, then someone that wants to do counterfeit, they will have to buy a legitimate shoe or get access to a legitimate shoe, or get access to a legitimate NFT or so on and so forth. And for that, the transaction will very likely won't allow them to, will very likely be close to the price, right? Unless there is a significant error in the process. So limiting the supply through the blockchain is a way in which you can make some activities economically viable, but obviously it's much more complex than that. There are many different access, there are many different incentives, many different markets, people wanting to do this on purpose, people getting scammed, and so on and so forth. It's complicated. I mean, there's a reason why it is $1 trillion, more than $1 trillion counterfeit market. And there's also a reason why it has been for so long in there. It's a very complicated problem to tackle.
Indeed, and I guess we will see counterfeit mobile apps, that counterfeit NXP devices for like premium counterfeit. You cannot stop that. I have a quick one about Tangent and NXP cards. One is
just one little addendum to the answer there. There was a question about sort of the asymmetry of information and working on things together. Just to point out that like almost everything is open source and is available on GitHub. I think 99.9% of stuff.
Yeah, I think A maybe was chasing looking for a solution like the service fee you mentioned. That's something that Kyle and me also been thinking a lot on how to support Dandelion. Dandelion is our set of Cardano APIs that we host on Kubernetes for everyone that wants to play with GraphQL, Submit API, Explorer, Rosetta, Ogmios from KTorth. I host every API I find. I host it for for anyone to play, because yeah, that interested Kyle, and he started building a wallet. I think it's a good thing, but we need people to grow their own dandelions on their gardens, and for incentivizing that, we need to find a model which could be based on blockchain API tokens or something like that. That will be great to build it together, or at least to have some regular meetings, maybe to expose our approaches, your approaches, try to.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that, and I'll chat to Carlos. But that sounds very plausible.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
Also, last but not least, I mean, you asked questions about sharding and storage and so on and so forth, but I don't know at what level, because I mean, Cardano is one thing, and it will have the roadmap, but we are seeing let's say in a level above it, because we're users of Cardano actually, and we are just so we see, and you know, we discuss, and obviously sometimes we get involved in what's going on there, but what we care about is actually the business problem. So let's say the storage concerns. I mean, if we are talking about the things that we do and have done for our clients, you saw in the metadata service that, you know, you obviously need a way to need to store the file somewhere, right? So you can store it in S3, you can store it in IPFS, and there are other options that we are allowing our clients, right? So, but that's a concern above. When you talk about sharding, it makes me think that you're talking about sharding at the lower layers, right? So you can parallelize in a way, right? What happens at the core blockchain, but that's also a discussion for the broader roadmap of the platform, more than you know, the services that we have built on top of the bridging that we are doing, right? So I just didn't know where, you know, what specific piece or layer you were talking about.
I'm thinking about some kind of decentralized API market for all these services that maybe also helps on the don't trust, verify, don't just use the Cardano GraphQL that IOHK hosts for Cardano Official Explorer. Grow your own garden and run your own services. And if we start that journey, maybe we can build a layer on top of those deployments, all those standardized deployments, standardize as much as we can. I just made a humble Kubernetes deploy for, trying my best on standardizing that without any API gateway, just the service there. But yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like in the future, when we have all these decentralized applications, if we only have like 4 providers for the gateway, or people is not aware that it's important that they check metadata from trustworthy source, maybe we will see a lot of random stuff going on, because you know, things.
Yeah, can I build upon that a little bit? So to me, you know, when we were going through the example and the diagram of Atala Scan and talking about all this stuff, like one thing that was really just popping in my mind was, you know, you're validating or verifying a product. You know, could you do that same with a service or even a person, right? So to talk about, like, for instance, somebody providing a service, you know, so it's whether it's Dandelion or some official hosted, you know, API or whatever, you know, ultimately people could be tampering with my response, right? If I'm trying to get metadata for whatever reason, that could be tampered with, right? it's kind of like putting that trust. So ultimately, the people hosting the API have to have like, ultimately they should be verified and have some type of reputation, right? Like, the endpoint, right? So if I host Dandelion, Roberto hosts Dandelion, Alan hosts Dandelion, everyone's hosting Dandelion, not all of us might have the best intentions, and we could be trying to tamper with what people are trying to receive. Especially if we know why you're looking at the particular metadata that you are, because if everything's open and transparent, depending on how you structure your metadata, I mean, a lot of times it seems like it's more just referential and, for like receipts or, various type of like handshakes. But, people may not always be, utilizing it like that. So you could be, even if it's something for like if you're trying to verify your own identity, right? Like saying, okay, I put, I signed a message, right, in metadata, and really it's just like, let's say various identifying link data, but like, let's say I have a Cardano address, right? Like me and Roberto were playing around with this too, where I put my addresses in something that I have deemed to like, just to identify who I am. That could be tampered with, like, anything along those lines, especially when you talk about like PGP and you're like, hey, do this, so I can verify you. But hopefully, whatever service you're using to gather back the metadata isn't tampering with that. So, yeah, I feel like there was like really strong correlation between like Atala Scan, where it's like, hey, let me verify a product, versus like, hey, is Roberto's Dandelion endpoints, like, can I trust them, right? Like, it's kind of like this weird SSL of, trust, not just like, oh, the connection's good, but like, is the information I'm getting back valid?
Yeah. That's a very interesting topic that you brought. I mean, it is also a concern in any blockchain scenarios, not only Cardano, and it boils down to the following question: who is running the node? Because the person that is running the node is the only one that can have trust of the information that they are given, because the node has built in a way that it works securely in a decentralized manner, right? If someone else is running the node for you, you add a indirection layer that can be tampered with in any case, right? So if AWS, or well, not AWS, but if Gimbalabs is running the node for me, then I necessarily need to trust Gimbalabs, right? Because I will be asking them what's the balance in my account, right? I will be sending transactions to them, right? And so on and so forth. And so anytime that you have an indirection point, there's a threat, in it, and it is a point that can be tampered with. But this is, this is a concern that will always be there. It is the same with any other blockchain. You either run the node or don't run the node. There are special considerations for that. If you don't run the node, you have to trust the person running the node, that they are attached to the right network, that the node is up and running, that they're providing you with the right information, and so on and so forth. Now, if you, in your example where you have a website that lists your addresses, the problem that you're having or trying to solve there is the identity problem. And of course, if you list them in a website, then you trust the security of the website to actually make the tie in between you and those addresses, and the fact that the addresses are the real thing and you're in the possession of that, and so on and so forth. That's it's not so much about who's running the node, but more about who's who, right? Who's in possession of what, who can do what. And that is the identity problem, which is also intricate. It is complicated. There is a set of reasons why it's not ingrained as a first-class citizen, let's say, in the internet stack. But it's also one of the reasons why there is so much people trying to solve it in a compelling way in all the W3C working groups, right? And the Decentralized Identity Foundation.
It's exciting. Thank you for this conversation. Before I forget it, because I'm really interested, do the Tangent cards or the NXP chips you are using are already able in their latest firmwares to sign metadata? I mean, they are up to date with the blockchain features. A second one is what's the average cost for one of them?
Yeah, so Tangent cards, they can sign any transaction, so they can sign metadata transactions, and you'll have to craft the transaction for the card, and then just tell the card, hey, sign this for me, and the card won't care what exactly that transaction is. It will just get the job done. NXP doesn't have the capability. NXP has only symmetric encryption. NXP is a specific purpose chip, much more limited, right? There's always a trade-off, right? NXP's reception is, or user experience is better because you can read it from a distance. The chip is smaller, you can embed it easier, right? But you have to, the trade-off is the security piece. It doesn't have asymmetric encryption. It doesn't support Cardano's elliptic curve, and so on and so forth. And the price varies. There's a per unit cost, of course, but it can go anywhere from less than $1 to $5, depending on what $5, and depending on many things. It can even go beyond $5, depending on what material you want to utilize to enclose the chip. Does it have to be flexible? Is there a metal in the surface or not? And so on and so forth. So it's a thing that needs to be analyzed on a case-by-case basis. But it is an important thing to be thinking about if you want to bridge that gap, because hardware components are very useful for you to do that. Okay, now we do need to go. Yes. So I mean, you have our contact, email and so on and so forth. Roberto, I would like to, maybe we schedule a conversation later on, Alan, myself, and you. It's very interesting division that you were laying out. I would like to continue to talk about this. From my side, everyone, thank you very much for the questions. They were really good. I mean, I love the engagement that you were able to gather here, and hopefully we continue talking about these problems. And it is our day job to do this, and we do it for our clients. We make our life easier, and we'll try to publicize the stuff that we do, right? And we'll try to put services up there, and we will try to offer services as well, because in the understanding that all of us believe that those are useful, right? If they have worked for us. So hopefully this will continue engaging, and very, very excited to see what you propose for the metadata challenge, because we will be behind that.
All right. Carlos and team, thanks for the time today. Yeah, we're passionate about this model and bringing people together. So here's to more conversations. We'll do our best to publicize what we did today, the metadata challenge, and so forth. And it goes both ways. Like we're gonna keep asking you for help, but let us know what we can do too. Okay, and we'll be really excited to keep collaborating.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
See you.
Skep and AJ, thanks for being here today. If you guys have any questions, feel free to stick around. Thanks, Gonzo.
I gotta run. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, talk soon,
Bye,
Steve. A and I had a nice chat last night, getting some, like, narrowing down the grain size for the event ticketing. So we have a scope that the two of us can start delivering on, which our goal is, we hope that produces clearer questions for you guys and for Will and Nick, for example, and also provides clear entry points for other folks who want to contribute at any point in the stack. So he and I are building that out over the next few days, and we'll share more, but excited about that status update. And it just felt, it felt so clear last night. So that was really cool. And Skep, I'm reading the chat. Skep's question, we can use the same architecture as Atala for a unique identification system like validating documents and credentials. Oh, excellent. Yeah, so guys, just high level before talking about the details of that, like our goal at Gimbalabs is to provide support and to maximize your autonomy, right? So if you show up with questions, you fully own your ideas. We're never, you know, we're not interested in kind of taking what you're doing and running with it. We believe that when people come together to solve problems, it's a positive sum for everybody. So if that means you guys just want to hang out and talk through ideas, I don't think there's time to go deep today, but that's something we can do anytime if you want to follow up. Okay. To the specific question, can I punt that to Roberto and Kyle? Because this is essentially what we're working on right now too. But I don't know if you guys have a specific insight you want to share.
Kyle, you are muted.
So, I mean, basically, it's kind of like what I said. Like, it was nice to kind of have validation on the way we've been approaching a lot of these problems that we're trying to solve. And it also goes just back, like, you know, like there's always, you know, a million ways to solve a problem. And even though, you know, there's certain tweaks and, you know, certain things that they will accept as a solution, right? In the end, you know, the way they utilize even the Cardano blockchain, right? It's been a lot of what I think, at least, you know, majority of us have kind of viewed it as, where, you know, it's not, you're not trying to like put everything in there, right? It's just this way of being able to sign or, you know, capture a transaction or some type of like transfer of something, right? Or just even like, you know, even if you were just to do the ownership, like, hey, I have declared I am the owner, right? Through one of their transactions, right? And then like when I saw IPFS, I was just like, yes, like, you know, to me, that was actually a very interesting win for us, because like that was like, you know, clearly there were people in our community who already knew about it, but it kind of showed up late to the game for like a lot of our solutions, right? But the cool thing is it was like super simple to get up and write. And I mean, so simple that when we did it on Coding on Chain, neither of us had it installed on our computer, right? Like we started the session installing it and then we just used it, right?
Yeah.
That to me was, yeah, just kind of getting all these validations, like, okay, yeah, we're thinking correctly. We have the right mindset. Like, it's not even about like, oh yeah, we use that technology. It's like, that's not the point. The point is having the right mindset, right? Like to me, it's anybody can be anybody can code, in my opinion, but you can identify programmers, right, by the way they think, right? Like, because they, you know, people in this industry, they think a certain way. So when you think, you know, been thinking for years, some of us decades, of like the standard architectures and, you know, centralized models. I mean, that you never would have called it like, oh, that's a centralized model, but like just, you know, the way of writing traditional software, I should say. And then transitioning into something that's definitely, you know, there is this hump, right? There's always this hump of getting into decentralized thinking and trying to solve the same problems almost, but just in a decentralized way. They have so many different hurdles. But yeah, just being able to listen to them talk about their solutions and, you know, their reasonings, it's just been very, very validating, like for our own approaches, whether or not we use the same stuff, right? And even bringing up things like carry, right? They're like, oh yeah, we never heard of that. It's like, well, guess what? You should. So that was, I mean, overall, just like really good. I mean, I don't know if I really took anything specific away, but just a general, you know, I don't know, just validation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this conversation is a good baseline, and I'll I think I have an appetite for more of kind of the finer grained details. So as we move forward, we can keep pushing in that direction. But the model,
Yeah.
it's this model that's important, right? Is bringing people together, bringing in experts, and seeing where we end up.
I'm gonna try to answer from my perspective, maybe a bit holistically, the question from ScapeX. Can we use the same architecture as Atala for unique identification system? Well, you know, we've been trying to build a proof of concept for this event ticketing system. We face it like tons of questions. As Carlos Vargas from IOHK said, it will heavily depend on your final use case or scenario, but not only from an architecture standpoint, but also from a stack stack languages perspective. Like, do you want to build a mobile application and you need to sign transactions from there because your use case requires you to perform some actions from a mobile phone? Then you will need to go for Emurgo, React Native libraries for doing that stuff, because it's the top-notch state of the art for that. If you are good running anything on a desktop computer, then you can run Cardano wallet like New Balance does. Yeah, there will be a ton of questions to be asked to Tinker. How can you build an MVP for your use case? And that's where, after like 3 weeks, I think we are getting there for the event ticketing system. We have more or less a clear tech stack that we need to use, define, and also an architecture and a workflow for it. But yeah, it took like 3 or I don't know if it's been 3 or 4 weeks of plenty engineers divagating around different solutions and technologies and projects like IPFS, but on top of IPFS or BDB or some other decentralized database. So yeah, I'd say it depends, but we can probably take advantage of some of the strategies that Carlos and his team share with us. That's not on a GitHub repository. That's first-hand know-how, and it's really valuable, and I'm really thankful for it. My mouse is not working.
Yeah, man. Glad you're here, and be in touch. If you're on Discord, let's connect about a good time to go deep into your idea, right? Maybe you could lead the conversation and just share what questions have come up in your work, and we can bring some people together at the very least just to shoot the breeze about those ideas, and we can do more than that if that's what feels right. Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't get anywhere without these conversations.
Yeah, I mean, to say the least. I don't know if many of us would even be here right now.
New statement of the day.
You know, if it wasn't just for like our own involvement, I mean, and this kind of willingness to, yeah, I don't know, kind of even just put ourselves out there with what we want to do, you know? So, I mean, so.
And we're working on some
without
documentation right
Dandelion,
now
so,
for,
yeah.
Oh, sorry, Kyle. Yeah,
No,
we're just working on documenting what we've built so far, so we'll be sure to keep sharing that stuff. There's just so much going on, so we'll do our best to get that out to you in a timely fashion. All right, y'all, should I press, well, I can stop recording at the very least. So if anybody did watch this all the way to the end, thanks, and do be in touch, okay? We'll talk.